Showtime. Welcome to Rewind with Ellen. I'm your host, Ellen J. Wanjero.
And I'm our co-host, Ro Carter. Roger, let's go.
Roger Froger. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Got a little cut, a little trim. Hello, hello. How was your Labor
Okay,
Day?
you cleaned up for this. My Labor Day was good. I actually chilled for the most part Saturday, Sunday, and then I ventured out on Monday to celebrate a friend's birthday on his boat. Shout out to Lafayette Park Films. Happy birthday again.
Ellen was on a boat?
Ellen was in a boat. Ellen
Big
likes
boat, little boat, or just like intimate boat?
a big boat. A big
Okay.
boat. Oh Jesus. I'm trying. There we go. Branding matters. It's a nice size boat. It's over 40 feet.
So when it
Yeah,
comes
so
to boat size, does matter.
you ain't never lie, Ro. You ain't never lie. Size matters when it comes to boats, among other things. How was your Labor Day, Ro?
I wasn't on a boat, but I got to catch up one of my college roommate and his family. So I went out to Long Island, had a good time. Went to a couple of vineyards, and just enjoy the week, man. I'm as I'm getting older, I'm like a nice aged wine. I just like to chill, just enjoy it, just relax. So,
I can relate to that. A couple of vineyards. I love a good vineyard. Did you any you would recommend?
I wouldn't even know the name.
Right.
That's how crazy it got out of hand. But hit me up. I'll shoot you something later.
Okay, so season 2, episode 1, we're back like we never left. It didn't even really feel like we were on hiatus last week. I mean, like a true hiatus row would be like a month, and I don't know that I could stay away from this.
From me?
From
me
you.
or
No, from Rewind with Ellen and Ro talking about what we talk about. So I'm glad that, we had last week off and we're right back into it. And we are kicking it off with a beautiful, beautiful film called Really Love, which is streaming now on Netflix. It's directed by Angel Kristi Williams and co-written by Felicia. Pride, Black Woman Magic, officially. And of course, it's starring Kofi, Siriboe, Yootha, Wong-Loi-Sing. I'm obsessed with her name. Mac Wiles, Jay Deschette, Suzanne Douglas, may she rest in peace, Blair Underwood. I mean, it's a solid cast, just to name a few. So to just give a quick premise, it's set against the backdrop of gentrifying Washington, D.C. Isaiah, who's played by Kofi Siriboe, he's an emerging Black painter. He's on the brink of either breaking out or giving up, and he meets Stevie, who's played by Yootha, Wong-Loi-Sing. She's an intriguing beauty with big brains, and then love happens. So, there are a lot of things that I fell in love with in this movie, starting with the depiction of Black love. I was just over the moon that this had nothing to do with trauma or crime. It was a love story, right? Just a love story based on two people, their worlds, their friendships, their families. It felt incredibly personal. There were moments where I felt like I was a voyeur, watching a real life couple fall in love and go through the motions. A lot of people compared this to Love Jones. I was kind of in my feelings about that just because the majority of the comparisons came across as negative, and I didn't understand why, right? I didn't really think that it had that much similarity to Love Jones outside of the fact that it's about a love story, about two Black people falling in love, and that's the gist of it in terms of comparing it to Love Jones. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I did feel some Love Jones vibe, but I also felt like a Spike Lee vibe because the jazz and the music that intertwined with every scene. So it definitely had that vibe of like, hey, I want to watch and see what's going to happen with this. As you alluded to earlier, that there wasn't any drama, or a gangster movie. I was waiting. I'll be honest with you, and I was like, something's going to happen. It's someone from the past is going to pop up in there. But I love that it stayed the course. And it was also about successful Black people of color, just going out there and making a way for themselves, and ambitious too. So I really love the message in that. I mean, there's always heartbreak in trying to do whatever you want to do in life. But when you are going after the things you love, happiness is bound to happen at the end.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch them actually fall in love, like to watch that process, right? And this is a testament to their acting skills, to Kofi and Yootha's acting skills, because again, it felt like it was real, right? Just the way they would look at each other, just the nuances between them, and just how free they were to be Isaiah and Stevie. I think for me, that was the biggest takeaway in terms of, wow, that's what falling in love looks like, right? Minus to what we spoke about earlier, the trauma and the crime and the drama. Like, this is two people falling in love freely with no, like, insane obstacles outside of, what the premise is, dreams versus career. Like, what do you do with that? Yeah, there were these moments where, they would look into each other's eyes and you could just see. You can't tell me that they're not in love in real life. Like, I'm convinced that they're together.
I mean, Ellen, the two beautiful people looking at each other for what? A duration of a movie? I'm in love too. I was like, I'm sure any woman who could replace, or any man could replace, be like, all right, hey.
So it's either, again, a testament to how phenomenal they are as actors to pretend, or there's like some underlying romance that we are just not privy to. But, whether that is the case or not, it doesn't matter. I think they did a superb job portraying love in its purest and finest form. I'm somewhat of a hopeless romantic, contrary to popular belief. So, when my heart isn't ice cold, like it's also like mushy. And I looked at that and I had hope again, right? I had this idea of, oh my God, maybe there is a shot in hell for me to experience that sort of raw and real love. And I love movies that can make you think differently about something you are kind of against, for lack of a better word. I mean, what was your takeaway in terms of, first of all, are you a hopeless romantic? Have you ever been in love? Did you connect with this in that way from a guy's perspective?
Yes, I've been in love a couple of times.
Oh.
But as you get older, I have learned that to be vulnerable, and that's, I think, the hardest part after you get your heart hurt, is to still be available for that next person or that next adventure in your life. So what I do now is, going forward, I try to learn something from anybody I meet, in my life. So just in case if it doesn't work out, I took something from them positive. It wasn't like an attitude or anything, like maybe it's a famous recipe they had, or just I learned something about a subject I never knew about, or maybe even a couple of words of a different language, something that's going to help me, let alone, but make me feel like at least that was a great moment in my life.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's good to take away the positive and make it.
That takes a lot of growth, though. That doesn't happen.
And it takes time to get, over the PTSD and take from it what you must, so you can be better in the next situation. And so just going back to the Love Jones comment I made earlier. Now, I do know that the director, it was intentional to some degree to give it that Love Jones feel, which I appreciate, right? Because there's familiarity in that. But the fact that, the last time we saw Love Jones was whenever it came out. Now, there've been variations of that, like Love and Basketball, Jason's Lyric, but there's never been a Love Jones. I think this is the closest. Really Love is the closest to me to Love Jones in terms of authentic Black love. That's believable. I don't know. So somebody just left a comment. DW, hi DW. She says, or he says, wish it had a bigger budget to be a longer movie. I think that's interesting. But then where else do you go after the way that it ended, in a way that keeps us plugged in, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I guess I get their point. But then maybe I don't.
But that's what the beauty of Love Jones was. It was very intimate, and with that budget, so you have a couple of scenes, and it's really up to the actors to portray that moment, that energy. And so the scenes with them when they're together. Listen, I guarantee you, come fall, you're gonna see a lot of brothers with a Jeep and having Kentucky Fried Chicken. I was like, oh, she was like, oh, chick. I was like, it was so stereotypical, but the Jeep and just the autumn leaves, it was a good vibe, and I was like, oh, that's an amazing first date. And that was a beautiful kind of vibe and energy. And then being in his apartment and just showing her his artwork and just that vibe and energy of them being intimate. Yeah, I mean, I think a bigger budget, it's tough, right? You don't really focus on the actors as much. I think we already had a tough time with the amazing cast that this was. I sometimes expected more from the cast, and I was like, oh, they're really just gonna let these people rock. You know, and I love that because I really got to get to know them as people, but also as actors. And I guarantee you're going to see them in more movies standalone on their own.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that first date, I think that was one of my favorite scenes. It's just the greenery and how simple their first date was, right? And you can just see the love percolating as they lay on the hood of the Jeep, eating fried chicken and drinking wine, and just gazing at each other. And I love the fact, in terms of just like the beautiful shots and the landscapes and the cityscapes, this was home. This was DMV. This was DC. This was Maryland. This was Baltimore. So there were spots all over DC that I was like, oh my God, I've been there. Oh my God, I love that spot. Just so being able to connect to that was kind of like another heightened level for me. So the combination of the cityscape and the music, that alone was just enchanting. I felt like that was its own love story. And so paired with Stevie and Isaiah's journey, it was just like the perfect combination. Were you familiar with any of the? You're not familiar with the DMV, are you?
No, not like that. So for me, I was like, oh, it's a new city, a new area of the city I didn't see before. But let me ask you something though.
Yeah.
If the brother just had a regular 9 to 5, are you allowing that to be a good first date? I think him being an artist and showing their talent, like the $10, $20 chicken date, I don't think that flies with just anybody.
No, it certainly might not fly with, you know what, I'm not going to talk about who it's not going to fly with. But for me, that would fly, right? Because I'm more into, us connecting versus going to a super expensive restaurant versus this and that. Like, sure, that needs to happen at some point. But I cherish those moments of simplicity, right? Because that's when we don't have any distractions. It's you and me, and we're focused. And that's when you really can get into somebody and potentially fall in love. So I loved that. I loved that. But there's probably some women that'll be like, you better not. You better not.
Oh, you better be fine if you're going to bring that shit. You better.
Or you taking me to, somewhere else after that. Like that was just a precursor to,
We're going somewhere else after the chicken, right? We're going. All right.
What were some of your favorite shots?
Like I said, the park scene was amazing. The club, just them vibing, and I love the art, just the dark, and then the background was the painting, and that kind of gave you the energy of the room. And the end shot of the movie, without giving the movie away, but the last shot of her looking, and I was like, oh my God, that was a perfect scene. So it was a great vibe. You know what? I love more and more of the Black films I'm seeing and that we've seen together on blackfilm.com. Like that. It feels like a Brooklyn vibe. I don't know. It feels like a New York City vibe. Not just me, because that's the closest thing I can kind of feel. And so for me, everything we've watched, even the movie in Philly, even this, everything's giving me a New York City vibe. I guess because New York City is starting to come back around now. So just the energy in New York City is more electric than it's been in a long, long time due to COVID. So I love these films. I love the energy. I love the music. And it's it really flows together. There's synergy there in these films that we were watching together. So I really enjoy it. I'm excited to see what else comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. The art was beautiful. The various artists that were displayed in this film. I mean, it's a healthy list. And there's something about art and music that easily produces love or feelings of love. So I'm glad that all those were mixed into this film. Yeah, there were plenty of other scenes for me. I mean, just one really quickly before we move on to the next segment. Before they go on their first date, when they first, the second time they see each other at that party. First of all, that whole party scene I thought was pretty dope, right?
Yeah.
It just giving me basement vibes. It could have been in New York, to your point. It really could have. But I like how they sort of reconnected again, and just the nervousness of, seeing someone that you like and you don't really know for the first official time, not knowing what to say and feeling giddy. And, it was just something about the way they rolled out that romance that I connected with in a way that I don't know that I've connected to in a really long time, probably since Love Jones. So, all right. So on to a question you and I have been trying to figure out. Bless you. Dreams versus love. Can they both coexist? Right. And so that was a big topic in this film. And that ended up being, sort of the wedge that got in between them, because Kofi's character, Isaiah, is chasing his dream of being an artist, a painter. And he's right on the cusp of making it happen when Stevie comes into the mix. And so, that kind of takes a quick pause, and, they're now both focused on falling in love. But I'm kind of team Isaiah in terms of, I was on a wavelength before you stepped on the scene. That ain't finna stop. So if you got to go to Chicago to do what you got to do, you need to go do that. But on the flip side, I also understand, as a woman, you want the man that you're falling in love with to be like, please, baby, please stay. Did you side with anyone in particular on that front?
I've learned not to do that. The guilt factor in a relationship. Here's the thing. Yeah, you got to almost play chess and not checkers in this. Unfortunately, in terms of, hey, what if it doesn't work out? And now that regret, and then you're looking at each other like, oh, I could have been this, I could have been that. And there's a scene, we didn't talk about this, but it just hit me now. When he sees one of his colleagues that he went to school with, and he's talking about, hey, so what you been up to, man? I had my own private art thing downtown and blah, blah. And the energy of that, right, of just to know how hard it is to hustle and do that, it's tough. And so you have to understand, any artist, if they haven't made or established themselves yet, that it's a grind. I have a couple of friends in New York City that are artists, and still to this day, man, you're in your 40s and you're like, it's still a hustle. And now I finally made it happen. I'm like, but you've been doing this for 25 years. In other professions, you could have been this or that. And now you're like, I just got there. So there is a grind, and there's a respect for that. Anybody that's willing to sacrifice or make a lot of sacrifices, but your partner has to understand that. But I guess, let's play devil's advocate here. You have to be upfront about what my lifestyle is, before you get in. Hey, I want to let you know, I'm feeling you. The vibe is great, but this job, this is my life. This is my life. So you kind of come second in it. Unfortunately, I want to make you first, but right now, until I get this thing going, you're second. And so that's hard to hear. It's kind of like dating somebody who's a single parent, and they have a child. Sorry, you're going to be second. So if you're willing to understand that, I think things can work out. But if not, then yeah, it's tough.
Hakeem Graham, what up, Hak? He brings up a good question. He asks, can you live on what if, right? Like, what if this dream happens or doesn't happen? What if this romance takes off or doesn't take off? That's a valid question, because you just never know what is. But then you got to follow your heart in your head. Like, those two need to be in alignment to make the best decision that works for you. Especially if this is a dream you've been chasing. And when it comes to creative dreams, that's a whole different grind, to your point. it takes a minute when it comes to chasing creative dreams. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, to add to what Hakeem's saying though, I've seen two grinds, right? And
Yeah.
there's the people that are still trying. I lived in LA for a little bit, and I saw people that wanted to become actors, but they weren't doing the work to become the next level actors. So at some point, you know, you reach a shelf life, regardless if you're male or female, you reach a shelf life that you're like, hey, you still trying to be an actor? You know, are you still trying to be this? It's like, so what have you been doing? Like, you're doing everything but putting it all into that one basket or bucket, you know? If you're
Yeah.
really going for it, you got to put it all in. And so I think that's the hardest part. I think in any job or any kind of goal in life we're trying to do, we always have one foot in, one foot out. And the fear is like jumping all in because you never know. Failure is huge, but failure 9 times out of 10 will make you stronger.
And that's what I loved about this film. It didn't wrap it up in a big, pretty bow, right? Because it could have been very easy for Isaiah to be like, yes, stay. Then what would have been the premise of the movie? There would have been no conflict. There would have been no, you know, emotional arc, no real development. So to stay true to the nuance of love, be it black or white, at the end of the day, we're faced with decisions that we have to make in our relationship. So I appreciate that they made it in this way, that it was the man saying to the woman, you go to Chicago. This has been your dream. And so the fact that she was willing to give that up was kind of gangster, right? For him. And so could you imagine if she would have given that up and stayed in DC? And then, you know, like how would that relationship have developed if that would have been the case? I think it was beneficial for them to go their separate ways, achieve the dreams that they were already on the path to achieving, and then hopefully come back and exist together peacefully. Okay, so what Hakeem is saying, commitment, it's got to be there in any profession. Yeah, right. Commitment to your profession, commitment to the love, commitment to your dreams, all of it. And she would have been miserable, to Hakeem's point. All right, so another big thing I loved about this film was the level of support that came from friends, from family, which was a little iffy until things developed for Isaiah. You know, starting with Stevie's family, and rest in peace again to the one and only Suzanne Douglas. She played Stevie's mom in the film, and Blair Underwood plays her dad. And so, of course, they are the creme de la creme of a black family, and so they want the best for their daughter. They want an only daughter. They want her to, you know, be successful as a lawyer, marry a successful man. So when they meet the poor painter Isaiah, the shade of it all. And I love Suzanne Douglas in the roles that she plays, but for the most part, she plays bougie roles and she plays them well. And so she definitely did her thing in this film. Did you agree with their perception of Isaiah?
Well, in the beginning, you're always going to check a brother. That's just what's going to happen. But when I listened to him and how he spoke and sir and ma'am, listen, that's old school. You can hear whether or not it's sincere or not, you know?
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm an artist and I love this. And then they talked about art and famous artists. And it was like, oh, okay, I got to respect the kid. You know, he actually knows what he's talking about and who he's following. So it's a tough profession, you know. I think the weird part, though, was when he said, hey, you know, he's living with me. And I was like, oh, you know, that's, hold on. So what we're paying for? Because you ain't paying for it. We going to, he's living with you? Is that what's going on? So the transparency with your parents is always tough. She checked him at the door, though. She was like, I know it's nice to meet me. I was like, yeah.
Right. No, he said it's a pleasure meeting you. She was like, indeed it is. Like,
yeah. Exactly.
I gotta use that as somebody.
I was like, damn, all right, well, we're starting to miss it. But you know me, I like to jump just a little bit. But then later, as the mom, she shows her vulnerability. And I think that helped with the relationship, kind of understanding, hey, I once had this before, but I had to make a choice. I had to make a sacrifice. And so I love that, you know, for all this toughness that she showed, this bravado, there was a soft and sensual side to her. And she said, hey, I had to make a sacrifice. If I didn't, I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have this. And so that was real. And I think that really hit home for her at that time when she needed to hear that.
Yeah, I loved that. Was a special moment. You know who else is in this? That she didn't have a lot of scenes in this, but she was in it. Natari Naughton, Tasha from Power.
What was the point of that? 2 seconds?
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, that was interesting. So she played Stevie's cousin Cicely, and she only pops up maybe like 2, maybe 3 times in the beginning, and then towards the middle, progressing to the end. But you know, she was supportive, and I love the advice that she gave her. Like, you can't drop that bomb on your parents, and you know what it is. Like, he's broke, and you have him living with you. Don't no man want to feel like, you know, he can't provide, that, you know, he needs you and he can't, you know, give you the life that you deserve. And to your point, after that dinner scene with her parents, things changed for Isaiah, because he saw how the parents reacted. And of course, as a man, that's going to hit you a little different, and it's going to force you to move a little different. And so he kind of reverted back to his work and focusing on that, which, you know, to Stevie was kind of like, what's happening? She didn't know what was going on, and she didn't understand. So, you know, you always need a good girlfriend or a good family member to, you know, check you and bring you back to reality. Now, his family, I felt some type of ways about his family, because they were anti-supportive. Like, this black man could not bring up art or painting without the father throwing so much shade his way. And that was kind of heartbreaking, right? Like, why I gotta blow up for you to now be on board? For you to understand that, you know, this is something lucrative. I am good at what I'm doing, for you to respect my profession. But on the flip side, you know, it's art imitating life. Parents don't really understand being an artist or being a musician. They speak the language of a job that got benefits, something that you can, you know, fall back on for years to come. And sometimes, you know, artistic endeavors aren't really that.
or they want to see the check in front of them that says numbers that you are being paid. It's like, okay, see, son, this tells me that you have a job that you're gonna get paid for. Your dream doesn't tell me anything.
That's unfortunate, but you know, it was nice to see Isaiah not let that deter him, right? Like, he, you know, you're getting it over here, but you're really focused over here, and you apparently are the only person that believes in yourself. But also Stevie believed in him, and so I like that message, right? You focus on what you know you have, just keep going. You will get there, you know, especially if the talent exists. Like, don't stop, ignore the naysayers. I love that. So moving on, staying within the support, moving on to Friends. Man, I loved Michael Ealy's role in this as Yusef Davis, who was a successful painter, right? So I love the fact that they had sort of the height of what a successful painter would look like, so that Isaiah sort of has this barometer of, okay, this is what I'm working towards. This is who I want to be. And also, Yusef was team Isaiah, right? Like, he connected him with his art agent, and he kind of, you know, dropped a couple of gems here and there for Isaiah to sort of latch onto and to apply. There was a line, and I'm jumping here, I'm pulling one of your moves. Do you remember, we talked about this earlier, a line that Yusef said to Isaiah that you mentioned?
He's like, do you own one of your pieces of art?
That's right.
So a lot of us give us art away, give our jobs or our visits or time, our art away, and we don't own anything. So what happens when you do blow up? You know, eventually, what do you have to fall back on? You know, you have nothing. So now you're just waiting for this money to come in. But at least if you have something, you can make money off that. So owning your own business, and that was huge, you know, story. And he said, you know, a lot of us, we don't own our own stuff.
Yeah.
And even go up back to Blair Underwood, he said that, hey, you know, you buy property down here. He's like, do you own anything? Just testing him out. I was like, no, sir, I'm just trying to be an artist. So, right now, Black ownership is huge, you know, and that's a conversation that has to be had, you know, across the board. What do you have? You have all this talent, but what do you really own at the end of the day that's going to be yours, just in case, you know, it doesn't work out or it ends?
Nice. Yeah. Another scene that had to do with friends and support involved Mac Wiles. I love me some Mac Wiles. He played Nick, Isaiah's boy. And there was one particular scene, and it's a year after the breakup. And so it's a year also after Nick has seen Isaiah, and they see each other for the first time. And Nick goes to Isaiah's apartment, and he's trying to get his friend out the house. Isaiah is knee deep in painting something, and so the Nick, as well as us, the audience, can't see what Isaiah is painting. So there's this moment where Nick kind of walks in front of whatever Isaiah is painting, and you just see Nick's entire being just sort of shift as he looks at it. The audience isn't privy to what Nick is looking at. And I thought that was such a pivotal moment for so many reasons. When it comes to Black men and allowing themselves to be vulnerable with each other, that's rare, right? So, when Nick recognizes that Isaiah is still knee deep in love with Stevie, his whole mood shifts, right? So it's no longer, let me get you out, let's go party, whatever. It's, yo, have you talked to her lately? And then that they embrace after that. And it's initially it's this surface embrace. And then they go back in, and it's a more profound embrace. And you kind of, recognize, like, Isaiah is hurting, and his boy, Nick, sees that, and he's there for him. I think that was one of the most touching scenes I've seen between two Black men who are friends and can be vulnerable and show emotion to each other. And it felt authentic. Did any of that resonate with you when you watched that?
Well, no, that's how I am with my family. We all talk, and we open, we hug, we talk. So, in my relationship with my boys, my closest ones, I'm giving them, hey, man, you okay? I'm checking on them. I think COVID has actually made us realize that more than ever. And so you're seeing films and everything now that's a little bit more where the men are a lot more vulnerable than they ever been, I think, in cinematic history, So it depends how you take it, but I love that, because now we can have an open dialogue about, hey, what's the future of us? What do we want to be? Where's our health going? That's the biggest conversation I have. Anybody I catch up in high school, I'm like, yo, man, how you been? You need to be in the gym. We need to be doing stuff, eating right, all these little things. I want to see you next reunion. I want to see you 5 years down the line. I want to see you 10 years down the line. So those are conversations we have to have, even though they're sometimes tough. But again, that's that maturity and growth in yourself, and being able to give that to others.
Yeah, I love seeing that. Shout out to Uzo Aduba, who played the art agent Shania. She
killed it.
Uzo could do no wrong. Her character reminded me a lot of her role in Treatment, sort of this very serious, by the book sort of woman, and I love her in Treatment. And also shout out to Jay Deshette. She played Mecca, who was Mac Wild's character, Nick's girlfriend. I love Jade in Billions. It's a Showtime series. She's so dope in that. So it was actually cool to see her in a completely different type of character in this. This was a really nice cast, I think. And so we talked about film quotes, and we talked about ownership. And so when it comes to ownership, to a point that you brought up earlier, tying it to the end of the film, and as we wind down this show, the fact that we, the audience, were not privy to what Isaiah had been painting all along. We didn't get wind of it until the very end, at the same time when Stevie saw it. I thought that was such a beautiful way to end the film. Now, I read a bunch of reviews and watched a bunch of videos of people saying, no, it shouldn't have ended like that. It left us hanging. It should have been tied up a little bit more. I disagree.
Perfect.
I disagree. Exactly. I don't think that it could have ended any more perfect than that, right? We think we know how it ends, but maybe we don't know how it ends. And so then does that leave room for a sequel, or, what happens to Stevie and Isaiah later on in life? I don't know.
I actually love that. I mean, the cinematography at that time, and that perfect, right then she looked at herself, and at first you're like, who is this? I was like, oh, what are we seeing here? Is that another black nipple in a film? What is going on? All right. But it was a perfect shot of her just chilling and laying back, and then Has anybody ever painted you or has made a drawing of you at all?
Hell no.
Okay.
If
All right.
if that
All right.
person ever came, if that person ever came into existence, we would be together.
All right. I don't know. Maybe with
I'm,
the 42nd Street got a little sketch, something like that. I don't know.
well, that's what you're
But
talking about. No.
no. There's levels to it, right? There's definitely note to self, Ellen. If you can draw Ellen, you are in. You are in. That's
We would
another.
be together.
We learn more and more about Ellen every week here at blackfilm.com. Ellen,
If you're a painter or a photographer, holler at me.
hit a sister up. Hit a sister up. Well, hey, let's talk about some things. Chemistry.
Ooh.
Chemistry on film was amazing. You know, Ellen, you had an amazing opportunity to interview both of these young actors. How was their chemistry when they were together? What did you feel? Did you feel like something was going on, or how was that?
Listen to my aforementioned statement. You cannot tell me these two are not in love in real life. Like, I felt it. They did the interview together. Like, they were in the same.
Yeah, that was weird. I was like,
together?
oh, that's the first time I've ever seen that.
Oh.
You happen to be at my house? We do another painting? What's going on?
So in my mind, that was a dead giveaway, but of course that probably isn't even true. But then there was something about the way Kofi looked at Yootha when she was speaking that I was just like, ooh, I recognize that look. I know what that look means. I could be wrong. I don't know. But the chemistry, and I loved what she said in the interview, like before they started shooting, Kofi said to her, let's touch noses or let's touch each other's nose, right? And she was explaining that there's nothing more personal than touching somebody's nose, because that's not something we do on a regular basis, right? So there has to be some level of intimacy and trust, right? And vulnerability there to let somebody in your space to that degree. So I think when he invited that into their space, that created a level of trust, which went into their characters, because some of those lovemaking scenes, they were so personal. Again, I felt like I was watching two people who are legit in love, and I'm peeking through their bedroom window, watching them get busy. That's how personal and intimate and real that it felt. And so my biggest question during that interview was like, yo, what level of trust did you guys have to establish prior to accomplish what you did in the film? And it was all rooted in vulnerability, which I guess I understand that. Yeah.
Where can we plug in for the interview?
So go to blackfilm.com, the website, or go to blackfilm.com on YouTube to watch it directly on Black Film's YouTube channel. And I also had the pleasure of interviewing the director, Angel Kristi Williams, as well as the co-writer, Felicia Pride. And word on the street is that Felicia Pride is currently working on another love story. I cannot wait for that, because if it's anything like really love, it's gonna be good. So I'm excited to see what else comes from Angel Kristi Williams and Felicia Pride. And of course, obviously Kofi Siriboe from Queen Sugar, like, come on. And then Yootha Wong-Loi-Sing. I first got wind of her in Own's Love Is. I remember that was my first time seeing her, and I remember thinking to myself, well, she's interesting. Her role is interesting. She's interesting. I wonder what will come from her. So to see her in Really Love and the way she delivered that performance, big things are coming from her, and obviously from Kofi too. What did you think of the chemistry?
Oh man, it was great. I was like, wow, something's going on. Just like you hinted to. They had a huge opportunity. A lot of this cast is so amazing, so much talent, and to give these two young actors sort of the screen to say, hey, you have to sell this love story, and they did. That shout out to the director. I mean, that's a lot of kahunas to do that, to trust your baby with these two. I don't want to say brand new, but kind of new faces for us, in Hollywood. And it's nice to see Black Hollywood, this is the first, this was, melanated brothers and sisters. This is my new thing for the film. Hashtag beautiful melanated sisters. Because the sisters in this film were just glowing. They're, oh man. What was her name? Who blew me away? Mecca? Woo!
Jada Shat, yes.
Woo! Woo!
Gorgeous.
She was, I mean, everybody was just beautiful and having a good time. So I love that we got to see that on screen. I love the direction that Hollywood is going. And they're opening up more doors for Black actors, you know, of all colors and shades, you know, and that's beautiful to see because we have talents in all different shades and sizes. So the future looks bright.
Shout out to Netflix's multicultural department for, you know, pumping out good
They're on fire.
content.
They're on fire right now.
Wait, Netflix is on fire. Y'all hiring? Because, you know.
Just saying, you know, we just refuse here. I'm just saying.
We're highly melanated. Like, what's happening? Yeah, so I mean, and it goes just beyond, you know, African American films. I mean, Netflix is pumping out African content, Latin content, just across the board. It's representative of the world as we see it. So keep it up. Any last words before we wind down officially?
No, it was great to catch up. Glad to see you're safe, and I'm enjoying next week. See what we got.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all the comments. Shout out again to Hakeem, to DW for chiming in. We appreciate you, and we will see you here next week, Thursday, 8:30. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.